Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So for those of you who are new, my name is Heather, and for those of you who have been here for a while, it's good to see you again. Glad you are here. So today we're gonna have a chat. We're gonna have a chat about how to start an urban homestead and how to do it in a budget-friendly, conscious way. All right, because honestly, if I'm being completely transparent in regards to this, I really wish when I had started this whole process here on our urban homestead, I wish I had had somebody kind of in the mentor category, I guess you could say, that just came alongside and said, oh, you don't need to do that. Oh yeah, doing this is a good idea. No, don't waste your time on this. Could have been a resource person, and that would have been so helpful. I probably wouldn't have made so many mistakes, and I don't know, I probably would have been here maybe a little bit sooner. So I hope that this video, yes, I took notes, I wrote down notes so that I wouldn't get too babbly. So hopefully this video helps you and encourages you to begin an urban homestead and know that you can do it no matter where you are. Okay, so let's go on ahead and dive in real quick and get this video going. All right, so number one, learn your space. Now that might seem odd for me to say that, and maybe you've been in your place for 3, 5, 7, 10 years, however long, and you're going, I'll live here. But when it comes to gardening, and I figured this out early on, thankfully, this is one thing I figured out for myself early on, was paying attention to the space, to the garden space. So even when I only had our small original bed, which had tomatoes and basil in it, I was starting to pay attention to things like the sun. When did we get the sun over here where the tomato bed was? When did the sun go down? Is this area more shaded than this section? Because all of those things are going to affect how you garden and what you garden with. So for instance, if your property is maybe completely opposite of ours is mostly full sun, we have very little shade areas. So for us, shade plants they don't thrive. We kill them. But maybe you have more shade. In that case, you need to know that, because if you want to, say, plant vegetables or tomatoes or things that are requiring more light, you're going to need to make sure that you put a bed or a growing space in that particular zone on your land so that they can get the optimal light, optimal living conditions that they need. So knowing those things, where the sun hits, do you get more morning sun? Do you get more afternoon sun? Do you get more late afternoon or evening sunlight? Those things will play a very, very big role in how you garden in your space. All right, next thing you need to know. How do you move in your space? This might seem obvious as well, but it is just as important in the garden as it is in our homes. So if we are in a home that's not necessarily functional, perhaps you've noticed this, perhaps you've been in kitchens that are maybe not laid out the best way and are challenging for you to cook in because the flow of the kitchen doesn't flow, okay? Same process, same principle in the garden. Which way do you walk out on your back property or front property? Maybe you're going to be growing everything out front of your house. That's awesome too. You can totally do that. They do that in England all the time. They grow their vegetables at the front of their property because that's where they have the most land space. So how are you moving? You know, do you do a direct shot? Are you going to the side and coming around? Figure out how you're moving and how you're living in that space, and then plan your garden around how you move. Okay. Next is size. Size in this case, I guess you could say, maybe matters. Maybe. Because when it comes to gardening, there's this, oh, I can't garden because I don't have enough square footage. I don't have a 1/4 acre. I don't have a 1/2 acre. I don't have enough land. And we think in broad terms. Now, you can grow that way. Obviously, we know that people grow that way. However, do not underestimate your space just because you don't think that you have enough square footage. So determine your space and decide based upon the other 2 points that I just pointed out. Okay, so that's going to be your sun time, and that's going to be how you move. Based upon those 2 things, your next thing is going to be, okay, what can I fit in this space reasonably? And then go from there. All right, going on to the next major point, because that just flows right into what we're going to be talking about. Not underestimating your space. Learn vertical gardening. There is so much, I guess, fallacy in the garden world that people think that because, as I said, they can't grow, and that's not true. Vertical gardening is so freeing because, frankly, you have the air rights. Okay, think of it as air rights. So you have this square of land, but you have all the air up above it as well. Go on ahead and use that. If you have a fence line, you can grow something on a fence. You can grow peas, you can grow green beans on a fence line very, very easily. Grow up. If you can't grow down and if you can't grow out, grow up. All right. Now, if you have an all cement situation, there are a lot of people that I know that have this. And maybe you've got some square footage in the back, but you're all cement and you don't know what to do. Go with a raised bed garden. Now, if you are a renter in this situation, obviously contact your landlord. But 9 times out of 10, if you take the appropriate time and the appropriate measures, you can lay down a barrier that will protect the cement underneath, will not cause any erosion, and you can have raised beds on that sort of a situation. Also, vertical gardening in those situations is going to probably be your biggest friend. Okay, so learn to vertical garden. Now, for those of you in small spaces, and let me see here. Turn you around, because I've got a green stalk sitting right here. Okay, so those of you in small spaces and in more urban areas that maybe you have more cement, this is a great vertical way for you to grow pounds and pounds of food. I have not capitalized on our green stalks as much as I need to. That is something I'm going to be working on going through winter and going into next spring, is really capitalizing on these green stalks, because now that I have them, they are freeing up actual flat land space that I need for other things. So for instance, right now I've got green beans and wax beans in these green stalks right now. I wish I had done that this spring instead of putting them in the bed. There wasn't anything wrong with having them in the bed, but I could have planted something else in that bed and have put the green beans in our green stalks and have had just as good results, if not more so, because I can actually fit more green beans in those tiers than I could in that bed. So that is the other thing. Growing vertically, you do have more space to work with. So you can actually grow quite a bit of food. You could probably even outgrow me if you do it right and if you make a plan. Now, for those of you who maybe are interested in gardening, but maybe fall under the category of having mobility issues, or if you are having, if you've got a disability, something along those lines, green stalks are a great way to go. Now, yes, they're going to cost you a little bit, but the fact of the matter is they're going to last a long time. Okay? And that kind of leads us into the cost versus the benefits side of it. Okay? You are going to pay with two things. You are either going to pay in money, or you are going to pay in time. Money, you may be able to get a refund on. Time, you're never going to get that back. Okay? You'll never get it back. So, I wish I had had somebody sit down and tell me, no, don't waste your time on doing that. Go on ahead and budget and plan for this, because it's going to save you money and time in the long run. Because what I did before getting the green stalks, I actually got a different type of growing tier, and it just didn't function as well. So I wasted over $100, and I could have gotten one green stalk and have had a more functional way at the time of growing things. But instead I ended up wasting my time and my money on a growing tier unit that just it didn't end up working as well. And I ended up having strawberries die. So I ended up moving them out and investing in a green stalk instead, because it just works better. So sometimes you have to slow down a little bit, budget a little bit more, and prudent plan for that in the future. Because honestly, if I had done that, I just saved myself like $150. $150. So I wasted time purchasing it, setting it up, getting the dirt in it, planting plants in it, only to have them die, and then having to buy something that was more functional, and then buy more dirt to fill it. So honestly, I should have just gone with the green stalks. And there's things like that, and things that you will learn as you are going along. If you have any questions about these things, go on ahead and pop a comment down below. I'm happy to answer questions. If you have something specifically that you want to know, put it down below. All right, next, sourcing. Sourcing matters. I know that can be hard. I live in a small town, so that's definitely hard for us. Thankfully, we do have a few garden centers that have popped up, two actually. Our primary one that we go to, she is the one that we get our compost and manure from currently. But this is what I will say. You need to look into worm farming. If you are in a small space and you want a for sure clean compost, worm tea, worm castings, you know exactly where it came from, that you can use practically worm farm. Okay, that's going to be a thing that I'm going to tell you. I wish we had started one 2 years ago. It would have helped us so much. And when it comes to worm farming, you get a lot of compost very, very quickly. The turnover is very, very quick. So do not underestimate the size of what you are seeing, because even now my worms are giving us so much beautiful compost in those bins. I'll have to do a video on that again. All right, so you need to have a clean source of soil. You need to know where you can go. I definitely recommend going to a local garden center over a big box store. If you possibly can. Find a local, small person who you can get your soil from. Next is going to be equipment. So don't invest in unnecessary equipment. If you are in a very urban setting, if you are in a cement setting, you don't need a hoe. You probably don't even need a big shovel. So don't invest your money or your time or resources of any sort in buying unnecessary tools for your situation. Sure, somebody on YouTube could be touting it. I could even be touting it. But if it's not practical for where you are, don't put your money into that. You've got other things that you need to be looking at doing. I will be putting some links down below in the description box. I'll be putting where I get seeds. I'll be putting some links to places that you can get tools, places that you can look at getting raised bed structures. However, you can easily do that by actually going to a big box store. We obviously did cinder block. That's what works for us being on a dry creek. We get a lot of water along the back here, so wood was not practical for us. Doesn't mean that it's not going to be practical for you. Okay? So just because I'm not doing it doesn't mean that you can't. So work with your space and make your garden your own. Okay? This is where free creativity kind of comes into the garden. My best advice overall, my best advice when it comes to how to urban homestead: get comfortable with failure. That's not what you want to hear. That's not what I wanted to experience. But every single year, I can honestly say there is something that I could classify as a failure in the garden. Does that mean that my entire growing season was a fail? No, it doesn't. But I had a garden fail. I ended up losing a really nice purple sage plant. I ended up losing our borage. I could classify those as failures, yes, and they are. They failed, they died. But it's okay. And know that if you are growing right now, it's okay to have a flop. It's okay if something didn't work out. Kind of start doing some research on it. Okay? Look at some variables. Was it your soil? Was it watering? Those are just some basics right there. Soil and watering. Then after that, look at, okay, maybe it was a pest. Maybe it was a type of blight that you would have no control over. Maybe it was the plant. That does happen. So do not be afraid to fail. Be in a place where you can get comfortable with failing. Okay? So I hope that this video was helpful. If you have any questions at all, go on ahead and put them down below. If you have questions that you don't want to put down below, go on ahead and contact me via my email. I will respond to you. I will answer your questions. I'm more than happy to help you. Do bear in mind that it may be more than 24 hours before I get back to you, just because, you know, small family business. So we've got a lot going on. But guys, as always, keep it simple, natural, and essential, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.